Hi, my name is Shanda Rule. I'm a singer, storyteller, joy spreader, and host of the Courageous Voice podcast. The Courageous Voice podcast gathers and shares stories from artistic folks around the world and their journeys through fear, courageousness, and creativity. Join us and get inspired with me as we chat about learning to befriend and walk with and past our fears to share our voices courageously with the world. Hello and welcome back to the Courageous Voice podcast, season 2. I hope y'all are doing well and enjoying our content. I am so delighted today to introduce and to welcome the fabulous Hamilton Hardin. Welcome!
Look, it is so good to be here, and I'm gonna tell you why. I have such a high respect for you and your gift that when you asked me to do this, it was a no-brainer. So I already feel welcome, and I'm glad to be here as well.
Oh my God, thank you. Y'all, let me tell you a little bit about Hamilton. So he is I'm not even gonna say musician because I feel like you are a musician, but I feel like that narrows it down to the word that you think of as like a musician. But I'm gonna start there. He's a musician, a producer, a composer, a multi-instrumentalist, a man of faith, a father, a musical genius. And this is a quote because I saw this online, that you're a musical genius. And I do agree. Just a person of so many talents and so warm-hearted. This is Hamilton. Yeah.
Hey, good to meet you, everybody. And yeah, I'm excited, like I said, to chop it up with you, get a chance to
Yes.
talk about some stuff, get into some stuff, and yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, this is good. So listen, did I forget anything in my introduction?
I think you put too much in, but nah, you good.
Okay. So I was introduced to Hamilton from a mutual friend from Ike Stern. We listened to your music online, and then we had the pleasure of meeting last year in November.
Yes.
And listen, we can talk about a lot of things, but what keeps coming up for me when I think about you and the more I learn about how you are moving creatively in the world, what came up to me is going beyond expectation. And I was thinking this, and then I read something that you wrote. You were talking about musically about your idea of church music. And it said, it may not
Uh-oh.
sound like your church, but Jesus will be glorified with a passion and focus that you also may not be accustomed to. And there was something about that that really stood out to me, and especially about this going beyond expectations. You're playing all these instruments. Can you tell me, like in the beginning, is this just something that was a seed planted in you, or was this really encouraged by somebody in your life to just keep going that extra step? Where did that start for you?
Yeah, there are a lot of seeds that have been sown from
Okay.
childhood for me, and I'm completely sometimes taken back, but just really grateful for all those that have spoken into me. One in particular, there's a gentleman by the name of Edwin Bayard. We call him Eddie Bayard.
Okay.
He's in Columbus, Ohio. When I first started getting into jazz saxophone, which was sophomore year in high school, it's like really started digging in. I met him and we probably did lessons, I would say maybe 2, 3 times a week, um, sit for hours and talk about music. Dude never charged me a cent,
Wow.
never
Okay.
charged me anything. And so I always tell folks, whenever my Grammy speech comes, he's going to be that dude in there. But such a
Okay.
wealth of knowledge. And one thing he instilled in me was to always be conscious of your own sound. Even as in a young, sort of impressionable saxophone player, generally you sort of take on the sound of your teacher, that you're studying with. And he was always really big about, nah, man, who you want to sound like? What's your sound? And so I would tell him certain people, and not knowing the lineage of the instrument, he would say, okay, I see you like this sound, but did you know that Coltrane listened to this guy? and this guy
Mm,
listened to this guy, and this guy listened. So you start to learn the lineage, and then as you learn that, you start to develop your own sound. But that concept actually got way broader than just the saxophone. Even in
okay.
as a multi-instrumentalist, if I'm playing piano, I sort of took that same mindset. If I'm playing drums, I take that same mindset. Trumpet, if I'm playing, bass, whatever I'm playing, really being conscious of speaking authentically from myself without trying to mock or sound like somebody else. And
Mm,
then lastly, I think that really took weight in composition. So
okay.
the way I write and the way I interpret the world, which I think that's what we as artists do.
Mm,
We interpret the world through our lens. I just want to do that. I've wanted to, and I still want to moving forward, do that as authentically as possible. I would love to say, well, I don't even care what people think. But truthfully, I do care what people think. I want, you want as a composer, artist, whatever, you want people to dig what you're doing.
Of
But I
course.
think the priority starts to come, people dig me or my authenticity to what I feel like God really
Mm,
planted in me to do.
yeah.
Um, and the older I get, um, I think that priority is starting to become miles away from each other.
Okay.
I still care what people think.
Yeah, of course. We're
Thank
on this
God.
planet together, so it makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. But
And
I feel like in order to be our most fruitful, productive selves we were
Mm.
created to be, we have to be authentic artistically to those things that were placed in us,
Oh,
that
yes,
are innate to us. Because otherwise we start to
definitely.
sound like clones.
Yeah, and then it's not real. There was this pastor in New York that used to always say that there are people in the world waiting to hear your authentic voice, right? And so we
Yeah,
have to really focus on sharing that.
yeah.
Um, so I have a question. Your voice is so broad and it's gigantic. So how are you managing? There must be so many ideas because okay, you don't just have ideas for one instrument. Like you are playing, I don't know how many instruments, but how are you able to hone in and not let that kind of take you too many places? How are you able to focus?
So my method in general is to try to simplify
Okay.
as much as
Okay.
possible. So in order so it doesn't get too broad and complex, I just sort of simplify under one thing and I
Mhm.
really hone in to feeling.
Okay.
So, for example, when I pay attention, when I listen to Herbie Hancock, or I listen to Kathleen Battle, or I listen to, John Patitucci or Earth, Wind, and Fire, I'm paying
Mhm.
attention to how I feel.
Okay.
One, because as I do that, whenever as a producer, I'm producing for another artist or I'm producing music for myself, I am able to convey and communicate that feeling through the
Mhm.
music. And I think self awareness is important because I'm also the first one to say, this don't feel like that. I know what I was going for, but this ain't feeling right. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that as well. But I think having that feeling and honing into that is sort of what helps me if I'm playing the saxophone, if I'm playing flute, if I'm playing piano, um, if there's an emotion I want to exude, like that's what takes priority as opposed to trying to rattle off idioms from a pianist or from a saxophonist.
Yeah.
I just want to play the feeling, however that
Mhm.
comes out.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not, but at
Yeah.
least the effort is there.
I totally feel that. And also I feel like it's an interesting balance because I think that as an artist, that's what we do. We emote, right? That's like not an easy process of being
Mhm.
willing and vulnerable to do that. So tell me how you connect emotionally in that way that you're just open because I feel like that's a process.
Yeah, no, I got
That's
you.
the thing.
It starts with, for me, my spirituality and my walk with Jesus Christ. So, learning more and more the older I get to be as honest as possible,
Mhm.
prayer, because I feel like in a lot of churches, so much is a production, so
Mhm.
much is an act, so much, the speaker always has to be super extrovert and blah blah blah, and hey, everybody, hey, I'm so happy, and hey, today's a great day, hey. And I mean, if you feel like that, good. I don't feel like that all the time. And specifically in prayer, some days I wake up and it's the greatest day in the world. And I'm like, God, thank you for this day. Oh, the way the sun is, the way the birds are chirping. I see the squirreling, you know, and it's a beautiful moment. And there's other days where you go through stuff in life.
Mhm.
Things don't work out the way you want. And learning in prayer, like to communicate to God that way, it it's it has made me and is making me more and more honest in my interactions with people, specifically more in my art. Authenticity is really important to me, and honesty. And so, okay, what I'm about to say is not a slight to anything. I do think there's a lot of gospel music that is hallelujah, you know, and that's cool. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I feel that there is an imbalance of a range of emotions. When you check
Hmm.
out the Psalms, from
Mhm.
Psalm 1 to Psalm 150,
Yeah.
you got all types of emotions. You
Exactly.
got you got excitement, despair, uh, um, melancholiness. You have all these range of emotions in the Psalms, and
Mm.
it's God allowed that to be in the Bible for a reason.
Exactly.
And particularly when I talk to people that are maybe searching, or they're not sure if they want to follow Jesus, generally their observation is that church people seem fake,
Mm.
and it feels like a show. It just feels fake. And I think I think we're coming into a generation, and this is a good thing, where the fakeness, the people are being real about it. Like, I just don't, this
Mm.
ain't, and they're calling it out. And them calling it out is forcing those of us in the church to be like, you know what? I think honesty is what's important. So that's a
Mhm.
long way of saying my writing. Um, if you're going through a lot of range of emotions and things feel clustered, write about clustered feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, as you grow in your understanding, now I'm speaking from a Christian perspective, but as you grow in your understanding and your walk with Jesus, then at that point, you're able to funnel those feelings through Scripture, and you sort of get a Christ-centered view of your feelings and
Mm.
how it's okay to have them.
One of my favorite songs from your prayer album from 2020 was Honesty and Prayer. Was it Honesty and Prayer? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this is a challenge at many churches when you have people coming for this hour or two once a week. I'm recalling a church that I was working with many years ago, and there was this filtering of the Psalms. And at the same time, I do feel that kind of trepidation of introducing something to someone for like a second on a Sunday and not being able to be with them to
Yeah,
flash
yeah.
through it. So it's
Yep.
it's it's always a really interesting balance, but it's so needed. Like this last piece that I was doing with Ike, this river piece, and wanting it to be a lament and trying to look for examples of
Yeah.
liturgies of lament was just like coming up nil. There's
Yeah.
like a
Yep.
few.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, but I think the world is coming to a point where we can't ignore it. And I think maybe, there's been this focus on like light and being alive and
Yeah.
trying to just be in joy all the time. And there is something to that,
Yeah.
and I think that we're getting to a point where we just can't be blind to these things, and we don't want to be blind anymore.
Yeah.
So this is beautiful. And I'm wondering, so was this like a shift for you because you have your album in 2014 and then you have this one in 2020. So was this a shifting point of just wanting to show more authenticity, or what was it for you? Or was it the
I don't
change?
think I don't think it was a shifting point. I think the album in 2014 was, I was really in the middle of that. Like, there's a song that I have called "Keep Loving," and the lyrics say, keep loving if they love or not, keep
Mm,
loving if they love or not, because it makes the Father smile." it just repeats that phrase, musically I
Mm.
start to, um, add more ornamentation, whatever. But I was going through a situation where I had to forgive somebody and I had to love
Mm.
somebody, um, that wasn't, it's easy to forgive somebody when they say, I'm sorry.
Mm.
Hamilton, I'm so sorry that I did X, Y, and Z. And then you say, you know what? Hey, all is forgiven. We good.
Mm.
But when that someone's like, yeah, I did it, and we're still called to forgive them. So
Yeah.
that song, I mean, it sounds sort of happy. If you listen to the song, the tonality, it sort of has happy feelings, but
Okay.
it came from a real place of prayer. Like I gotta love it. And I gotta forgive this person because it makes you smile, God.
Mm.
And so, and there's another song called Psalm 13
Mhm.
on the Just Want to Say record. And if you read Psalm 13, it's basically saying, where you at, God?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I'm out here talking about songs of lament. A lot of scriptures, like when I read them, it inspired music. So moving forward to the Pray album in 2020, I'm just getting more mature in that and more
Mm.
used to being honest. And the record I'm working on this year, which is called Filled with Wonder, it's going to go even deeper. I feel like the older I get, if the Lord allows me to be 70 years old, 80 years old, whatever, as long as I'm making music, it's going to get more and more honest. And I mean, it's some of it's putting yourself out too. Like it's
Yeah.
putting your life experiences, putting your emotions. These are hide behind like a cover song. I mean, nothing wrong with that's a cover song. I'm not trying
No,
to say that.
yeah.
But it's easier to like put out a song, but it's a vulnerable thing when you're blah putting it out to the world. Um,
Exactly.
and for me, just to be honest with you right now, it is nerve wracking when I release something on social media.
Mhm.
I'm like, you know, because
Yeah.
man, like I said, I would love to say I don't care. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, I want people to like it, but at the same time, I know I'm learning there's power in authenticity
Mm.
and the type of power that's needed to be an agent of change for the world
Mm.
relies in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about pushback. Have you experienced any in this journey of getting more and more authentic? And how are you
Abs
dealing with it?
Oh God, absolutely. I think the pushback is I tend to I'm being really honest in this podcast.
Listen, it's
I
called
tend
courageous voice. Come on.
I tend I tend to, it's almost like the Michael Jackson thing. Like Michael Jackson, when he's in the studio, he's in his place. And live, obviously, Michael is a performer. But from what I hear from people that knew him or from documentaries that I watched about him, um, there's a shyness about it. And for me,
Yeah.
performing my music live is never a comfortable thing unless it's an environment that I create. So
Okay.
I never feel comfortable like doing an A and B selection in a church setting in
Okay,
most
wait.
churches.
Tell me what's an A and B selection.
So an A and B selection in a lot of Pentecostal churches, Kojic Baptist churches, generally, um, before the preacher gets up to preach, they'll
Okay.
have either the choir or they'll have the special guest do
Mm.
two selections.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
in those settings, I rarely feel comfortable, and even in other cultural settings in a lot of churches, I never feel comfortable because generally there's a sound that people are used to, and that is not wrong. I mean, we got
Okay.
sounds that we like, we got radio stations that we tune into. In my music, I don't care as much of sounding like X, Y, and Z. Generally, the response is just like staring like,
Okay. Okay. All right.
unless I'm in. The funny thing in a jazz club, concert hall, in non-church settings, my way of sharing the gospel, it's like soaked up. There's a great artist here in America named Doobie Powell, and he's
Okay.
an amazing musician. He sort of has stapled his sound. But I did a thing. It was me, Doobie Powell, and Kim Burrell, the three of us together.
Mhm.
Um, and in that setting, I could almost say that I've never felt as free and as
Hmm.
accepted. People were singing the lyrics along to all my songs before I could get it out. I'm like, whoa, you
Nice.
guys are hip to it. So it was like it was welcome. And those moments are important because it reminds you, hey, there is an audience that is into what you're doing. You know, necessarily sound like him or her. So I feel like God sort of put me in those situations to say, hey, just keep letting out what I've downloaded into you.
Okay. So more of the pushback is this kind of internal
Oh yeah.
conversation that we all have as
Yes.
creative beings.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then it's funny. I have two boys, 12 and 14, Hamilton and Hayden.
Oh,
And I even notice at times, I don't think they like my music.
oh my God.
But because they're into trap. And so I'll probably do a trap record.
Because you can.
Even
Look, this is where the genius comes in. Y'all do a trap album.
well
Because I can. I can.
well, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I produced for a record label, and all I was doing was trap for like
Okay.
5 years. So every age demographic has their preference and all that good stuff. Um, but I just noticed, I think the pushback I get, to answer your question, is more like, what are you doing musically? Like, I don't know how to receive this all the time.
Okay.
As a listener, they're sort of like, I want to support, but I don't know because this doesn't sound like the gospel music that I know.
Okay.
I feel like that's sort of the pushback that I can sometimes feel. Um, but I think people have responded well to the authenticity. I think
Okay.
people have been able to sort of sense like this is different, but it feels real. That's the response I get
Mm-hmm.
from people talk to me.
Mm-hmm. So this is important that you're getting this pushback. It can be an external, it can be internal,
Hmm.
but you're able to get this feedback, this positive feedback, because you continue to put yourself out there. So this is an important step to continue doing. And this, for me, is the key message in my definition, at least, of what courageousness
Yeah.
is really being able to navigate and to keep going. Do you have a good support system, or because you talked about the importance of your faith, of prayer life? I
Yeah.
don't know if this is your personal journey that you do alone, or do you have prayer partners
Mhm.
or some kind of support that's really helping you navigate this?
Yeah. I think the most crucial support has been my parents.
Hmm.
Um, my dad passed away in 2018, but
Okay.
between the both of them in my house, very supportive, particularly my mom. When I came in sixth grade, brought a saxophone and started squeaking honk, honk on the saxophone. Oh, that's the best. Oh, I love, look, that's nobody can play that saxophone like you. Like, I grew up
Oh.
um, very um, verbally, what's the word I'm looking for? Verbally uplifted.
Ah, that's beautiful. This is
you know,
beautiful.
I remember being in high school and sitting last chair,
Mm.
in my freshman year.
Wow. Okay.
Last chair in a third band
Oh my gosh.
because
Okay.
because because my sight reading wasn't good.
Okay.
I learned more auditorily. Sitting last chair, that's a discouraging thing.
Mm.
And to go home and my mom, my mom, she kept me lifted to the point to by the time I got to senior year in high school, and especially freshman year in college, I was first tenor as a freshman in college in the
Wow.
big
Look at
band.
that.
And
Mm-hmm.
able to go out and do things. So when auditions didn't go well, or um I've gotten passed by for certain things, that's a major part. And currently I have a small circle of friends.
Okay.
I'm learning the difference between the words friends and associates. And I can still dap it up with my associates. We good. But my friends are the one that if I'm going through something at 2 a.m., I can hit you up
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
wake up, what's up, dog? You know what I mean? Like we can talk. I think that's important, particularly for men to have a wolf pack,
Okay.
if you will,
Okay.
of brothers that know your struggle.
Okay.
And theirs, and there's like true community that happens there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. Yeah. I need some more community here.
Right now, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I moved here about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And so locally, I probably have a lot more associates. So most of the people in my inner circle, my friends, like my best friends in Baltimore, I have a lot other friends in Columbus, Ohio, and various places. So we keep in touch more virtually
Yeah.
through phone, FaceTime, whatever. But it's still a community, even though it's not local.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, thank you for saying that. I think I needed to
Yeah,
hear that out loud. Although I have met some beautiful people here in Austria. So,
sure, sure.
yes, 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 yes. Okay, I want to know about the Orchestra of Light.
Yes.
Okay, please tell me about this.
The Orchestra of Light is something that God has downloaded, imparted into me some years ago. And this year, I'm in the middle of really putting it
Mm,
out. So essentially, it's my original music with rhythm section, 20 to 30 piece orchestra,
oh my God.
20 voice choir,
Mm,
choreographed ballet, and then behind it, a video wall. So
yes.
the concept is you are getting a full sort of smorgasbord of artistic expression, both visually and auditorily. And it's my goal to really articulate the gospel artistically
Hmm.
very clearly.
Okay.
Um, and that is when I said there are certain environments I feel most comfortable in, the ones I am able to create.
Hmm.
That would be the environment I want to create. I'd like to be able to connect with other orchestra companies, other choirs all around the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's such a burning burden
Mm.
in my mind that I have to get it out. I have to do it. And so God is making ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. This podcast is hosted through Connect.Faith, and the pastor there was speaking to me about this huge openness and drive to find new ways of creating worship experiences as things
Yeah.
shift. Things were shifting before the pandemic, and then that kind of just like made it shift even faster. But I mean, this definitely sounds like that. It sounds like a new concept of liturgy and worship and
Yeah.
creating these sacred spaces for people. And yeah, we need it. We need it. And I'm going to hold this vision with you. And so,
Thank you.
everybody who's listening, we're going to like create a mastermind and we're going to hold this vision because we
Hold it.
need this.
Hold it.
Well, listen, Hamilton, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
You have
Absolutely.
spoken a word. A word. Listen, tell us where we can find you and where we can hear you.
Sure. So my records, which are Just Want to Say and Pray, those are the two titles of my current releases. They are out on all the digital distributors under the name Hamilton Hardin, HAMILTON, HARDIN. And so Amazon, Apple Music, Spotify, all that good stuff, you can find it. Please follow your boy on Instagram at Hamilton Hardin. I try to keep it simple.
Okay.
So it's just my name, Hamilton Hardin. And please follow, shoot me a message. Let's keep in contact.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you for having
Your
me. This has
yes.
been awesome.
The Courageous Voice podcast is a collaboration between Connect.Faith and me, Shanda Rule. Music is by Ike Sturm and production by Jess Burchett. Thanks for listening.